Hey, babe, did you know that straight men don't read fiction?
I didn't even know you could read.
Welcome to the channel. My name is J.R. Carroll. I am the author of the More Than Human novels. And today we are going to talk about, do straight men not read fiction? Okay, those were just some examples of, I believe, straight male booktubers. Now, this came to my attention through an article that I saw on X, formerly Twitter, and it was because of a comment that Mike from Mike's Book Reviews made. And all you can see when it first pops up is the the first couple sentences and the title. And of course, the way I'm very analytical in my mind, so when I see a title like that, first I'm intrigued, and then secondly, I'm like, why did they title it like that? Now, before we get too far into the weeds here, I got my pink Kraken cup, my Lilo and Stitch shirt, and then I got a stack of dark romance novels just so I feel good in my masculinity. Now, this article, on its face, I'm like, why would you say straight men? I don't know why you wouldn't just say why men don't read fiction. So, first off, I thought that was a little fishy in the article. So I went to the page News Weekly or Publishers Weekly, something to that effect, was the X profile that posted this. But it takes you, if you click on that, you go to a site called Dazed Digital, and immediately I read this article. You can go read the article, but I read it so you don't have to put yourself through that. This article, as it starts off, it starts kind of like a normal article from what you would think. It gives you stats about who's buying books, who buys fiction, but very, and I mean very shortly after it gives you a couple little stats, it basically stops talking about reading altogether, and it becomes a why do men feel like they still need to be masculine, and why is capitalism bad? That's pretty much the whole juxtaposition of this entire article. The article really had nothing to do with really diving into actually why men don't read as much fiction as women, and or what men are actually reading. And I can tell you this because I'm going to skip right to the very end of the article and what it suggested. Okay? At the very end, the very last thing this article says is basically, why don't you go out there and read Fourth Wing?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
You're writing an article supposedly to encourage men to go out and read more fiction books, but what you offer them or suggest that they go read is Fourth Wing. That tells me you have no idea what our audience you are actually spouting to, or maybe the only people who actually read your articles are not men. I mean, I'm guessing that's the case. And this kind of goes along the lines of, articles and stuff we had seen previously that said, is epic fantasy dying? Because epic fantasy is the domain of male fiction readers. Now, there are women who read epic fantasy. Don't get me wrong, I can put up a bunch of pictures up here of female booktubers who love their epic fantasy. But as a whole, that's where men are at. Now, women do read more than men, but the majority of fiction that women read are romance and now romantasy. If you take those two genres out, it's actually pretty close to the amount of percentages that people actually read. But here's the thing. Men want to read things that are, catered towards a male reader. That's been the big hoopla about romantasy. And this is coming from a man who has read a bunch of recent romantasy. I will put these around the outside of myself. I've also read dark romance because I like to be, well-rounded, see what other people are reading and why they are reading these things. But again, romantasy is targeted towards women, and women who read romance and try to bring them over into fantasy, which in my opinion is a great thing. I'm not one of these, there may be some guys out there that are like, oh, this fantasy is ours. That's not me. I want to get as many fantasy readers as we can. Now, do I think the whole thing about romantasy is kind of overblown and taking maybe more of fantasy than it should? Sure, but eventually that'll level out and we'll get back to our normal epic and urban fantasy. But this is just another thing that just drives me nuts. It's a clickbait style article that really had nothing to do with reading. They just wanted to tell you how capitalism is bad and how men being masculine is bad. Now, I actually think that over time, reading has been more acceptable. Fiction reading is more of a thing than it has ever been before. Being a nerd is a cool thing. I mean, you have, channels that do, maybe not for books per se, but for like superhero and fantasy, movies. You have they call themselves the New Rock Stars, is a huge channel. And it's all about nerd and nerd culture. So I don't understand why you had to kind of come in and try to, shame men into reading romantasy books. So if you really wanted to get more men into reading fiction, then you should probably push stuff that they are more likely to enjoy, such as maybe a Joe Abercrombie, maybe a Jim Butcher, a little bit darker things, a little bit more let's go out and conquer things, because that's what men naturally like to do, whether people like it or not. So I'm going to go ahead and get off the old soapbox here, but I just seen this article and I've seen a lot of my booktube brethren, putting their 2 cents in on Twitter. So I had to come on here. Let me know if there's something I'm missing. If you don't agree, if you do agree, let me know. If you like this kind of stuff, check out the Discord. It's free to join. Just click the link and we'll gladly accept you. And we have all kinds of fun and joke around. But more importantly, remember, be more than human.